Welcome to Wide Flank.
All right, welcome to Wide Flank. We're back, episode 2, Ocarina of Time. We had talked to Zelda at the end of the first sesh, and now we've moved on. We beat the next 3 dungeons / temple, which I learned. It's, they're temples now. They're not dungeons anymore.
A distinction.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm big now, so there's a lot of there's a lot of action. A lot went down in this sesh. How did it feel for you?
Yeah, so coming back to this, and coming back to this after we recorded the first episode and left off at a place that I kind of described as like representative of the experience of playing this game as a kid, because you haven't figured out XYZ lock and key and how to like really progress. I think I was a little worried, honestly, that I had like super rose colored glasses for this game, and I was like, oh no, is this game actually like, is it really dated? Is it like, there's a bunch of things about it that are obviously nostalgic. The music stands the test of time, absolutely. The graphics, for what they were back then, they were incredible. The fighting for what it was back then, incredible. But it wasn't something that like revisiting this, 24 years, I think, in the future.
Yeah.
No, more than 24, 26 is 98. Yeah. Is it just like a game that is like gotten a little stale or dated? And I feel really genuinely after this section, that's not true. There are some like amazing moments in the dungeons and temple that we played, and in between those things as well. So I'm really excited to dive into that, because I was getting really worried that I was like, dude, this is a game you like have to replay. Yeah. Like it's so good. Like it's one of the best games ever, and that's how so many people feel. But wait, are we maybe wrong or something like that? So I think spoilers, I don't feel that way.
That first section, I think now, like looking back at it, it's like that whole first section is sort of like the intro.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like, this is how you play. This is how you Z target. This is how you kill stuff. Like, it's supposed to be easy, because I think it's just supposed to teach you all of these 3D things and new things that if you came from old Zelda, or if you came from SNES, you're just like, what the fuck is happening? Right? It's like, but for us, it's like, oh, this is easy. This is stupid. Like, and we just breeze right through. But yeah, it gets way more fun and way more cool. And I definitely died multiple times on this part, like this whole section that we played, and there were some puzzles that were like kind of tricky, where I was just like, wait, what the fuck am I supposed to do here? And the Gorons are so fucking cute and so chill.
God. When
That's
we were growing
the immediate section to go.
Yeah, when we were growing up, we always used to joke. We had this like really big. He wasn't fat. He was an English lab, but he like makes these sort of like Goron-esque noises, like my childhood dog. And we used to always compare him to the Gorons. It's like, they're adorable. They're cool.
So cute. Yeah.
But yeah, so getting there, you get the letter from Zelda, or from Impa, I guess. One of the two gives you the royal, or not Zelda, gives you the royal letter that is like, you're gonna be able to open a door with this letter, essentially, which gives you access to Death Mountain and leads you into the Goron zone. And this is where I had a question for you, because I found myself during this section going to Google a couple of times to ask the question, basically like how do you figure out, as someone who doesn't like already know, how do you figure out the answer to X puzzle? Like what indicator, what clues are there within the system of the game for someone who either has never played this before, or in your case hasn't played it in a long time? And the first one that I sort of like asked this question of the internet was specifically for when you talk to Darunia, the like leader of the Gorons, to get the Goron bracelet. You have to play him a song. So I guess my question for you is like, how did you figure out that you had to play him a song? And how did you figure out what song to play him? Because there's actually like some backtracking involved there.
Yeah, you have like 3-ish songs by then, depending on how many like side quests you did. Maybe it's possible to have more, but I had 3, I think. And I mean, I had this feeling during this sesh of the game. I was just like, I think I'm just bad at single player games. Because obviously wide flank existed before Ocarina, and we played pretty much all single player games, and I always did like the dumbest thing. Like in every game, I was just like, oh, I like did this and died immediately, and and Teddy and Danny are always like, what the fuck, So like in Dodongos and well, I guess this is before Dodongos in Goron City. Like I was like on laptop keyboard, like walking across the ropes. I was like, oh, surely I have to like do this. It's just the hardest fucking thing ever on a laptop keyboard before I started using my PS4 controller. I was just doing everything. I died in the lava. I was like going crazy trying to do every little thing. I think one thing I realized also is like, I mean, Nintendo doesn't shy away from the fact that it like tells you how to do everything, right? Like every part of every game, I think, is like tutorialized in a weird way. And I always feel like in this game, especially, I just need to talk to everyone. Anytime I'm stuck, there's like one or two people I haven't talked to yet, and they're going to basically tell me exactly what to do. I don't remember if that happened in this specific part, but there is like the Triforce on the ground, and I think a bunch of the different Gorons are saying like he's waiting for someone from the royal family. Like he keeps saying like he's waiting for like the messenger from the royal family or something like that. So I eventually just like tried it, and you pull out the ocarina and it makes the sound of like you figured something out. Holy shit! And then I just played Zeldas because I was the royal family and got in. I think like the clue for it was sort of showing the letter to access Death Mountain, maybe. And like, because he's like, again, I didn't do it correctly. Like he says, oh, I need like an order from the king or something to let you through. And so I was like, fuck, I have to go find the king. So I immediately left, and I was like looking around. Totally like forgot about the letter.
I think there's no king in this game. Also,
yeah, like
you never see him. Yeah. So that's opening the door to get into his lair.
Yeah.
How then did you figure out to play Saria's song for him?
Yeah.
To get him to dance like crazy, which is hilarious, and then give you the Goron's bracelet.
Yeah, so the second part of that is playing music for him. He like kind of fucks you off when you first talk to him, but again, it was just talking to someone. I think it's the dude, the Goron right outside his zone. Says like, oh, he loves the music from the forest, and it even highlights it in like green or something. So I just walked up to him and played it, which by the way, it's like top tier moment.
Oh
like,
my god. Yeah.
When I did that, I was like, my smile was ear to fucking ear. Like him dancing to that track.
Oh yeah. He's
Dude,
loving it.
It was the best. I tried so many times to like screen record because I was like, I need to like post this everywhere, but I couldn't get it going. But it was just pure joy. Like the forest song, and it's such a good song, and him just going crazy. Yeah, it was great.
You touched on something getting into that I have sort of at like the end of my notes, which is like there's this question that I asked myself, and that I definitely asked myself more as a kid when the extent of the systems were a little bit more obtuse. Yeah. But a question you ask yourself whenever you get to any sort of area is like, can I do X yet?
Yeah.
Whether that's in Goron City, like getting across the lava, or opening a specific door, or getting around some rocks that are in the way, or like those sorts of things. There are a bunch of these little sort of like hidden areas in Goron City that require different keys, and there are so many keys in this game between every item and their various usages within 3D space. Every non-teleporting song, as we see in Goron City. That sort of in a lot of cases, without knowing the full limit of the systems or the like exact answer to a given scenario, as a kid or as someone who doesn't know those things, your answer might be, well, maybe there's a lot of stuff I can do here. Like let's try everything. Let's try every combination of item usage. Let's play every song. Let's see what we can enable here. And I think that that's really fun because there's a bunch of areas that I'm even revisiting. Having a pretty good memory of this game, but maybe not of some of the the sort of like non-essential side areas where
which
I'm like,
seems like there's a million of those.
It definitely starts to expand from that sort of initial sentiment that we had in the last episode of like, this world is kind of empty, and Hyrule Field kind of is, that's just sort of the way it is. But like once you get into the Goron City, you see that there is some details, some secrets, and I have some more thoughts about that we can get back into as it becomes more relevant. But yeah, okay. So we've played the songs, we've gotten the bomb flower, and then I have another question for you with regards to sort of the puzzling, because I remember this being sort of like really satisfying and interesting as a kid. How did you go about figuring out how to open Dodongo's cavern?
I tried. So you. Like for people who aren't playing with us or don't remember, like you basically like leave Goron City, light the torches, yada yada yada, blow some stuff up because now you can pick up bombs. And then you go outside and there's just one Goron like sleeping next to this one bomb that is obviously something. I mean, Zelda isn't shy about like being like, this is the fucking thing that you
this
have
is
to
a game
do.
object.
Yeah, this is like glowing game thing that is your next step or whatever. I tried like jumping down with the bomb first, or like going around the fence and trying to sort of like angle my throw. And then at my third throw or something like that, I saw that the fence was like lower, right where the bomb is. And I was like, oh, I'll just throw it over. And it just like, I think it kind of like auto corrects and lands right in the perfect spot and blows up the door.
I don't think it auto corrects, because I remember this being like a really weird hassly moment as a kid,
okay.
like it being kind of hard to get it into the right place. But this is again one of the like really cool instances in this game of like 3D space being used. Like you can't see where you're throwing it at all. You just sort of have to remember that that's the way that the path lines. And obviously, once you throw it, you get a camera that indicates where it's going. But it's like one of those sort of like surprising and thrilling moments for an audience that has like pretty limited exposure to games that exist within this sort of like really vertically sensitive 3D space.
The figuring out puzzle stuff also for me. I mean, like I mentioned, like in all those other games we played in the past that are much more modern and stuff, it's like I would get lost. I would go completely down a wrong path because you can do a lot more things. Right? There's not like invisible ceilings and walls in every room. There's not an owl that stops you in like a contemporary game. This game, it's sort of like a padded room. Like I can't fuck up that badly. I feel like in this game, which for me is nice. Like I can run around, like go totally off course, and it'll just like correct me eventually. It's like I'll run out of stuff to do, like straight up. There's nowhere else to go in the zone. I'm like, okay, I gotta move on or go to the next zone. Which definitely, kind of happened to me. But yeah, I wanted to mention the Dodongos. Like, so that's like the first, dungeon, I guess, after Zelda that we go to. And I thought immediately of what you said about watching Nolan play when you were like, the combat, it's not a combat game. And he was like, actually, the combat's really good. The combat is so good. Like, I'm so impressed. Like, when there's like these jumping, like dinosaur type of things in Dodongos. Like crocodiles are.
The ones who you fight on the platforms who have like, that kind of sword rhythm. Yeah,
that is like groundbreaking combat. Like that doesn't feel that different from a current game. Like they jump over your head and stab you in the back, and you have to like Z target, sidestep, like hit them. Like obviously it's easy, but it just felt really like modern. Like it just felt like, holy shit, like I'm really skillfully fighting. And it gets harder throughout our session, but that was the first combat moment for me where I was like, oh yeah, the combat is really good. And like when Z targeting goes well, it's incredible. I mean, when it goes bad, it's the worst thing ever created in mankind. And I just like am losing my mind, like slamming Z to try and like target the right thing. But when it's good, it's really good.
Yeah, the lock-on mechanism itself is very satisfying, and I think they do a good job too, especially in that fight of like the lizards take turns at going at you, so you kind of have a second to like reset and make sure you're targeting the correct one. There is that sort of like rhythm of they jump over you, that's when you shield. When they're in their sort of their moment where you can get them, like that's when you can stab. But that I think that alongside I think the other one, it's a little bit simpler of a combat, but the start of the Sacred Forest meta when you fight the wolf for the first time.
The wolves, and that whole temple, like you fight the skull guys with the shield in there too. Like that is just that's a modern game right there. Like that is what current games do. Like obviously the graphics are old and whatnot, but it's just like they shield you. You have to bait them out to swing their sword. When they swing, you can like sidestep and hit them. It's just like, oh yeah, this is just, I kept mentioning like Dark Souls in the last game. Like this is that, like this is that kind of fight where they react to where you are spatially. Like if you just have your shield up, they just won't do anything, and you have to bait them out, which it was just so good.
Yeah, so that there's that first instance of that. How else did you feel about Dodongo's Cavern? Because I'll be honest, this was probably my least favorite dungeon of this run. It's not that it's bad. It's good. There's a lot of good things about it. There are some of the puzzles which I think are pretty satisfying. The main one that I like a lot is the dropping the bombs into the eyes of the big Dodongo face thing.
It's red and you're like, oh, okay.
That's my favorite part than that. But other than that, I'll be honest. I find this dungeon to be a little bit forgettable.
It's not that memorable. Like bombs are cool. And like, I mentioned the fight, that was my first like aha moment with the targeting. But other than that, I mean, the boss is really easy. It's kind of funny that the boss is so ridiculously huge. Another thing that reminded me of Dark Souls, every episode is just gonna be, that. But I mean, it's easy. It's not that memorable. Feels good to get bombs. I did notice, this was the part of the game also where I noticed like, okay, I'm not gonna like 100% this game.
Yeah.
Because I got the bombs and I was like, younger me would backtrack right now to everywhere I've ever been that has like a cracked wall or a rock in front of it and put bombs down and go to and I'm just like, I ain't doing that.
Yeah.
Take me to the next zone.
There are some big misses that you'll get by not doing that.
I'm sure.
A lot of it is heart pieces, which obviously increase your durability and that kind of stuff. But there are some pretty big misses, one of which I'll reference here in a moment. But
sure.
So we wrap up Dodongo's Cavern then. Some interesting puzzles in there, and bombs are, to your point, are like, I think one of the game's biggest keys.
Yeah.
And especially at this point, you've had a bunch of instances of cracked walls, of boulders, of things. Even as far back, there's a wall in the Deku tree, which is bombable. Which I'm pretty sure is just a gold skulltula. But I didn't backtrack myself, so I can't remember.
Zora's Domain, which is like one of the 5 places you can explore in Hyrule Field, and it's just like hard blocked by big rocks, like bombs are just so fundamental and just open up the game a lot. So we get out of Dodongo's, we get into the moment where Darunia is thanking you for doing this, and he calls you his sworn brother, and that dialogue is so good where it's like, you're not quite sure what he means by sworn brothers, but you'll take the rock that you were looking for. Like, it's so good. And then the Gorons try to give you a hug, and there's just this like I felt like reflecting on this game, if you asked me before picking up at all, I would probably have described Link as like a sort of like nothing protagonist. You don't have any dialogue outside of some like grunts. You kind of just have the like reactions that you say to people in dialogue trees, and they're funneling you towards a correct answer in most cases. It's like take the thing you just fought for, or no.
It's like
take the thing.
Yeah, I guess I'll do that, or you could be like a kid who's like, I'm a little shit, I'm gonna do the rude thing, right? But what I'm realizing and remembering, which is really funny, is like there are these like hugely awkward moments. Like we talked about Saria giving you the ocarina in the first episode. This moment of all the Gorons trying to hug you and you running away. And then we'll get to it when we start talking about the next temple. But the the Rudo exchange after you
Yeah.
finish Jabba Jabba's belly. But yeah, I just love that there is actually that sort of like immense awkwardness, which is
You're
hilarious.
a kid.
You're a kid.
It reminds you that you're playing a kid in the game, and you're just
Yeah.
like this. You don't know what the hell is going on in the world, and you're just running around, and it feels like that in a good way.
Yeah.
But
Did
there
you?
weren't even really memorable songs in Dodongos though. Like, I mean, the
Yeah.
Goron music is
Mm.
like,
That
just
track
like
is popping.
yeah, it's just like the toms, and like it's just like a rhythmic track, and you're just like, yeah, because you're there for kind of a while, and you're blowing up walls and lighting torches. It's kind of catchy, but it's not like, it's not top tier Ocarina music.
No, it's true, but it is a good one.
Yeah.
So after you finished Dodongos, did you summit the mountain?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I went to the ferry and played her a tune, and
Mhm.
the fairy is a fucking insane person. Holy shit. The samples of the I'll try and like play it in the episode right now. She's just fucking screaming. Like, it's supposed to sound like she's laughing or something. It's just like, oh my
It's like
god.
it's like cackling though,
It's
is
like
a better way to put it. Like,
Evil, yeah, screams and cackles. I was like, what the fuck is this?
I feel like genuinely, because I was 8 when this came out, so I wasn't like,
Yeah.
I wasn't watching a ton of PG-13 movies or anything like that at that point, as far as I can remember.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is probably my first instance of the like, oh shit, I really hope my parents don't walk in during this moment in the game. Like, obviously, like looking back on it, it's like very like pixely, but it's like under
She's fucking hot.
She's hot. She's like
sexy.
I
yeah.
know, but it's more just like the awkwardness. Again,
Yeah,
more awkwardness. I'm gonna use
yeah.
this word a lot, but like you hope your parents don't come in during this moment. And I felt this culminate in I can share the screenshot with you after if we want to like put it in
you should
edit it in or
throw
something.
it in Discord or something. Yeah.
But there is this moment. So you go up, you summit the mountain, you play the song. She's like, I'm going to give you some magic power. And we're sort of like used to this gesture of Link, like holding, moment, like holding up or whatever.
Yeah.
And in most cases, it's because he's actually holding up like something, like the thing
item he just found or whatever. Yeah.
And in this case, there's this moment where he's just reaching up into the air, and it's like, you got a spin attack, and he's like reaching up like directly under the Great Fairy in this like super awkward way. And the immediate thing that my mind went to was the scene towards the end of A Clockwork Orange. If you've seen this movie,
I have, but I'm trying to think of the final scene. I don't really remember.
really quick recap. So this is a movie about like hyper violence and rape and horrible things and all that.
It's
And
fucked. Yeah,
it's fucked. The protagonist like goes through like this really, really drastic rehabilitation process. And there's this moment where like the police officers who did this whole thing are like trying to show off that he's like fixed or whatever.
Okay.
So they like put him on stage with like a topless woman, and he's like in the process of like reaching up to like, grab her chest. And then like feels disgusted with himself because of the rehabilitation.
Yeah.
And I felt like this shot of Link like directly under the fairy, like this is the exact vibe that I got.
I mean,
he's not holding up anything. He's just like sort of reaching up.
I mean, it's 90s, bunch of Japanese men made this game. Like, I wouldn't be that surprised if there was some perverted like sexist stuff going on. I mean, there kind of is like a sexist vibe in general that we'll get to with like the princess. I mean, it's like so you go to Zora's domain now that you can blow up the boulders, which is a sick zone. It's like I thought I was going to the water temple because like before I went to Zora's domain, I went to the lake and I was like, oh, there's the water temple.
You saw it under
I
the
saw
water.
it under, but I couldn't dive deep enough. I went to Zora's domain. I won the diving game, and I was like, now I can go to the water temple because I can dive deep enough. Nope, gotta go back to Zora's domain. But it's a cool zone. It's got nice music. It's got like a nice, watery, magical music cue when you enter the zone, and yeah, it's good. The Zoras are cool. I'm down with the Zoras.
That is a top tier track, by the way.
Really
The Zora's
really
domain. Good. You could put that on in a spa on repeat,
100%,
and everyone would be, bumping behind their cucumbers, right? Like, but yeah, as you're getting in there, one of the things that stood out to me, is now that you know that you get big, the magic bean salesman as one of the sort of like time linking items, which is pretty interesting. You plant the beans and you're like, oh, this doesn't do anything. You feel like kind of like the fairy tale, like, I just got scammed. And then you come back and it gives you like really incredible mobility. So I think that part was pretty cool. And then you have the other like El Clasico in games. There is something behind a waterfall.
Did Zelda start that? Because to me that is like pure Zelda. Like that is like the NES. I don't remember if it happens in the NES game, but it definitely happens in Link to the Past.
It's possible. I would have to research that.
Nolan is typing now.
Nolan's typing right now. He's like, actually, this is the first time, and But that's the El Clasico. Whether this wasn't the first instance of it, but it's a good one. You play the song to get in. You get into Zura's domain. The diving game, super interesting little thing. I like that there's sort of this feedback loop for the diving game of like, it's quite expensive. It's like a 20 rupee game, but the game itself is collecting rupees. So there's not this sort of, if you mess it up, it's like sort of letting you fuel a little bit of a loop to keep trying it. And then you get the message in the bottle in Lake Hylia and transport yourself back and get sort of this indication that the other princess, multiple princesses in this game is inside of a big fish. And
Jabu's belly.
Jabu's belly. So you go and you talk to the king and show him the letter, and then he does the most infamous scoot, the longest drawn out scoot in like the history of scoots.
It's incredible. I can't believe how much I don't remember, which is basically 100%. But like, it's just like, don't remember entering. Don't remember the scoot. Don't remember a big fish. Don't remember being in a body. But that's what happens. I mean, so this was a part that fucked me up. Also, I had no idea how to get inside of Jabu.
That was going to be a question I had for you. Is how did you figure this out?
No idea. I just kept trying everything, swimming all over the place, like diving everywhere. Like I thought, I have to go in through his blowhole or something.
I thought you were gonna say butthole, but
well, butthole, blowhole, I'll take anything at this point. I don't even know. Well, maybe I have it in my notes, but I don't know what got me there in the end. I think it was the same as the other one, right? I just was talking to everyone. And I think someone says something like, oh, he like loves a fish or something like that. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll try that. There's also like a fish in a bottle for sale at the shop in Zora's Domain.
Nice.
Which I think, like, again, like Zelda, Nintendo, they do a good job of like hinting it. I think if you do get lost. So then I just went in the water, like swung my bottle, caught a fish, put it in front of him, opened his mouth, good to go. But it took this was like pretty frustrating. Like I didn't know what the hell to do. I thought it was the water temple for a while, so I wasted a lot of time doing that. And then coming back and being like, oh, I have to show him the letter, and he scoots. And then I get there, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm just like immediately stuck again.
I remember this being, as a kid, like feeding him the fish and getting sucked in, this being like a holy shit moment. It's one of the more, I think, obtuse, like, there's the hint, the guy says it. This is another one that I Googled. How the hell are you supposed to figure this out?
I didn't really for a while. It was really annoying.
One Zoro, I think, says he likes fish in the domain. And then the other thing that you're supposed to like extrapolate is like, this is a fish who ate a princess who is a fish, and maybe you like draw the line between those two things.
That's loose. Like that to me, that's like really tough to figure out.
So you go inside, and then immediately, this was the moment in this playthrough for me where I was like, this game's just fucking incredible. This dungeon is so gnarly. Like, oh my god, this thing is disgusting. Like, the doors are like the valves of different like internal piping. You look at everything to this point, like, okay, like as far as like adventure tropey games go, like, you're in the Deku tree. Okay, cool. It's a haunted tree. You're in like a mountain with monsters in it. Like, yeah, these are things that like you could find in every Dungeons and Dragons campaign from from the inception till the end of time. Those will exist as like tropey dungeons. But now you're inside this like gross fucking fish. The doors are valves. The like limited scope of the texture, the polygons aside, like the walls are moving. They're just they're like guys, we need to like we need to make this moving so that it feels absolutely disgusting. I was like blown away by this. Like this is where the game sort of like turned itself on its head for me in terms of like being like it's awesome and cool and innovative and different.
Yeah, and the music has like an underwatery thing to it, which sets the mood. And then also to go along with how gross it is, I mean, maybe there's a trick to it, but until I got the boomerang, I couldn't fight any of the enemies. They just I can't pop the bubble. Like the jellyfish just electrocute me. Like the worms just fucking crush me. I was like, what the fuck is going on? So it also felt like, hard isn't the right word, but it felt like all of a sudden I'm like in big danger. You know what I mean? Like going from the rest of the game was kind of like whatever. Even Dodongos was like whatever. I'm fine. This is fine. So all of a sudden I was just like, fuck. I have to like pay attention. Like don't fall through those holes. Like don't get hit by that. It fucking fucks you up. Like and that added to it, I think.
Yeah, the bubbles are killable, but pretty much everything else is not killable, if I remember correctly, without the boomerang.
Yeah.
Which, to your point about the danger, it really adds to it because you are pretty immediately tasked with an escort quest.
Yes.
In this thing, so it's like, okay, cool. I'm escorting this princess, Ruto, a Zora princess, out of the belly, or actually not even out of the belly, to find the sapphire stone, the stone. The stones. And you don't have the means to actually even protect yourself at this point.
You can't climb. You can't use any weapons when you're carrying her. It's just like, that was frustrating too. Like you go in the water and she just kind of like twirls down and like disappears back to where you found her. And then she gets mad at you. It's just like, oh my God, what the fuck?
Yeah. So you're sort of going through that process, but then you get the boomerang, which is a really cool item that immediately becomes almost useless because spoiler alert, you can't use it as an adult. There'll be some moments where it's relevant the rest of the game, but it's a bummer to get, I think, such a cool item sort of towards the end of sort of the childhood cycle of this game. But yeah, so you get through this. This escort quest is, I think, pretty well designed as far as escort quests go. They can be really frustrating, and I think that this is probably an instance where as a kid, I felt like it was very frustrating. Like you're resetting a lot if you throw her into the wrong place or like go through a door that you weren't supposed to, or like something like that. But like overall, I don't think it is like it's not the entire dungeon, which is cool, and it is sort of this moment which is a little bit different than some of the previous dungeons.
It's not too bad. I mean, there's really only like 2 things that you really have to do with her. It's like you have to throw her across that one thing and step on the button with her and find the stone, and then she just leaves and you just play like a normal dungeon, which I was very relieved about.
Yeah, it's a good little side different thing that happens, but also I too was quite relieved. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's just go back to like thinking about myself and how I complete this. So
and then you fight the octopus thing that chases you around. That thing fucked me up. I died there. Yeah, like I don't know. There's probably a trick to it, but I was just running around in circles. Like I would hit the spike. I would try and because you kind of have to like boomerang it from behind and then hit it with your sword, right?
Yeah, so you have to boomerang it at the point where it's like spinning so that it gets stunned, so that its little, I don't know, weakness ball, whatever you want to call that. In the back is like visible when you're able to sort it, and if you don't do it fast enough, obviously he like resets and hits you or like charges faster at you or like whatever. So that's a pretty fun little mini boss fight for sure.
I thought it was harder than the real boss. I was just like,
interesting.
Yeah, I was just like, God damn it, this motherfucker. I think because I was so low health and whatever. But yeah, it was tough, but it was fun. Yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah. Then yeah, the rest of the dungeon, you go through some different areas, you boomerang everything in your way. And if
Easy.
you eventually find your way to the real boss, which I'm interested that you said that the octopus is harder than the real boss.
I thought
The real
so.
boss is not like crazy hard or anything, but it was the first boss so far in this run where I was like, there's some like pretty unique boss fights in this
Yeah.
game, and that's
Yeah.
one of them.
Yeah.
Where it's like a bit challenging. You have to sort of like time thing. It's not just use the item that you got. It's
Right.
like time using the item that you got correctly.
Right.
And yeah, again, pretty gross stuff. It's like
It's all gross. Like
it's like an ulcer or
you have to,
something.
like,
I don't
cut
know. Like
the like fucking I don't even know what it's called. Like cut the parasitic worms or whatever to open the doors, and then you fight the boss, and it's all these like tentacles and appendages and just like all this shit, and it's shooting lightning at you. Yeah, I mean, I liked the boss fight. I wasn't trying to say that the octopus is like a better fight. It was just harder for me. But
no,
yeah,
totally.
it's cool. It's cool. I mean, you have to like cut the 3 tentacles, and then there's all these spinning jellyfish, and yeah, like you said, you have to dodge stuff and you have to time stuff. Which again, is like we're inching closer and closer towards like better and better combat. Like I feel like the designers are almost getting more comfortable as we're going through, being like, okay, they're probably better at the game now, and they can like dodge stuff and do stuff. And yeah, the boomerang feels really good to throw. I mean, just like the angle's cool, the way it flies is cool. Yeah, it's a good boss fight.
Yeah, love it. Love that which jellyfish you kill changes what's like being shielded in future instances, and like that kind of back and forth.
Yep.
But yeah, I think we can probably close out Jabba Jabba's belly.
Yeah.
Again, beautiful, awesome, gross, disgusting dungeon. Like really this moment where you're just like, this is not a normal adventure game.
Yeah.
And that was the trigger for me. So you get out, Rudo's like, well, I guess I can give you this stone, but it's like your engagement ring. And
yeah, what the fuck was that?
But then you get the childhood awkwardness again, right? Which
you love. But the whole time that was happening, I was like, this is fucking weird. Like, why are they making the princess this like desperate, like psycho bride or whatever, bridezilla, who's like, I'll give you this, but you have to be engaged to me. Tee, like, oh, we're engaged. I was like, oh my god, this is weird as fuck.
I think it's funny, and I feel like there's this sort of like feeling probably more as a kid that I get like now in games, where like even when you're in a game, like kind of like going towards 2 different love interests, like feels like, ooh, I'm like cheating. Like it's like it like kind of has that moment in it. Like I don't know, I don't get that anymore. But in this case, I think you probably as a kid, you're like, oh no, but what about Zelda? Like I'm supposed to be going for Zelda, right? Like
right,
like that's that's the like real princess in this situation. So I think that there's some kind of fun moments with that.
My princess is the fairy queen. She's the fucking maniac, voluptuous maniac. But I forgot to mention the music also in all fairy zones, which I'm not actually. I should have done the research, but I feel like it's the same music in Link to the Past.
It's a callback, yeah.
It's a ref, right?
The
fairy music, but it's so nice.
It's so good. Again, you could throw that on the spa playlist with Zoro's Domain.
Dude,
like,
it just hits. It just hits every single time. And another thing, just off, I'm just ranting about the music, but I also forgot to mention, like, I noticed when I figured out to play the forest music for the Goron, and then he dances and stuff, the little animations when you play the song are actually so sick. It's just like this little like trippy forest animation. The camera changes and just
all
shows
around you, and like
like it's just enough to be like, oh my god. Every time I'm like, fuck yes. You play like Zelda's Lullaby. It's just like trippy, weird. I'm like, oh, it's perfect. It's so good.
No, that's a good segue, because I think we should talk about some music and some odds and ends before we talk about getting big. So after you finish these temples, you kind of have unlocked even before that, but you've unlocked sort of the majority of the things that you can do as a kid. Among them, you have the ability to go to Lunlun Ranch and learn Epona's song. Not sure if you ended up doing that.
I didn't know you could learn the song. I went there a little. All the mini game. I mean, I started playing with a PlayStation 4 controller, which I didn't realize you could even do over Bluetooth. But all the mini games when I was on laptop, I was like, nah. not doing this. Like, it's too hard to move around. It's impossible to aim. Like, so anytime anyone was like, you want to catch my 3 chickens? I was like, nah, I'm good. And I just skipped it.
So it's not a mini game, but I'll maybe be a little brief about that. But it's something that you can do as a kid.
Okay.
Is go and learn a Epona song. So I'll just leave it at that. So you can go back and revisit. Something I think you did do, which is learn another song, the song of the Sun Song.
Yeah.
Sun.
I got that from the graveyard, right?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite little moments in the game. Where you go into the graveyard, you play the royal lullaby, Zelda's lullaby, to get into like the headstone of the like royal family's tomb,
the Big Daddy grave. Yeah.
And you get into this like micro temple is the easiest way I can describe it. It's like 2 rooms and then a room where you learn a song. But there's something about the structure of that, and that just being sort of like hidden under this gravestone, that I remember as a kid thinking like this is so cool. This is like it's just me sort of like looking at this and then reevaluating my surroundings in real life. Like there's maybe mystery and excitement and weirdness to like scary royal family history stuff. Like maybe they're like behind any boulder or any tombstone or any wall or anything like that. There are these little areas like this that kind of give you this sense of like wonder and exploration and curiosity that I think really like enveloped me as a kid, maybe even more so than like the actual like dungeons and temples.
Totally. Yeah, I mean the graveyard stuff I didn't do until this sesh because you told me about it in the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
So then I went to the graveyard and I opened all of them and I went down. There's the fucking like zombie thing that just jumps on your head and destroys you.
The Redeads.
Yeah, like that thing was again so Dark Souls, so gnarly. Like just fucking it murders you, jumps on your head and instantly murders you if you're like in front of it, which is. Also, just adds like this. There's this like dark underbelly to this game, and there's so many like a complaint I had in Castlevania was like it got to the point in the game where every single wall I was swinging my weapon because I was like I might just break a thing and get some like really sick weapon or some power up or something, but. I mean, Zelda does like a little bit better of a job, I think, of like, oh, well, there's flowers in front of this gravestone and there's no flowers in front of any of the other gravestones. So I'll pull this one back. It's probably something. It's like, I don't want it to tell me where every secret is, but I like that it's not necessarily like the type of secret that like you have to swing your sword at every wall in the game or you'll never find that. There's like a logic to it, right? It's like you read the headstone, it's the royal family. It's like, oh, I know a royal family song. Like there's the 2 graves next to it that are both like songwriters and they're the ones who teach you the song. It's like there's logic to it. There's like a reason to find the secrets, which makes it feel a lot better to me. Yeah.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And then just to sort of like cap off some thoughts I had on music. So I was thinking back through this, and one of the things that I have sort of like realized going through this, and it's not like crazy big realization, but you have all these different songs. There are 12 playable songs in the game, and all these different songs leverage 5 notes. Which actually it's 4 notes, and I think it's A is the same note but a different octave. Octave up. And all of these are used to create this like really deep, wide variety of songs. So I was like doing some research on this. I found this article, which we can link in the show notes, by this guy named Dan Bruno, where he was like diving into all the different music and thinking about the different limitations that they had as songwriters making this game, and how it's sort of the mechanics of it are 5 notes, and that's the sort of like motive of the song. And then he calls it this like answer motive that lets the songwriters like elaborate on it. So you play your couple of notes, which is the sort of trigger for actually doing the song. and then the rest of the song plays in, and obviously that part, which is not manually controlled by you, can have more notes and take it in a different direction. But the sort of like constraints that put on the writers of the song, at least Koji Kondo, for this game, is really really unique, because all the adult songs too, and we'll get into those more episodes, all sort of like represent different like different song structures, like serenade, minuet, those bolero, like all those sorts of things. So yeah, I just think that was like a really fascinating game mechanism. And then the other thing that I remembered in researching this, which is easy to forget as someone who's coming through and kind of like taking the approach of, I remember everything about this game. Is I don't really like use the ocarina for funsies. I use it for, functionality. But if you were a kid just pulling out the ocarina, you could quickly discover that you can actually like change the tone and notes and stuff by using some of the different keys. So
I didn't know that. Shit.
You can play all of the notes using the ocarina.
Shit.
But not just by pressing a button. It's like you have to tone shift it using the directional keys or like that kind of stuff. But
sick.
I had totally forgotten that, because I thought it was just sort of this like 5-note MIDI, and there actually is like a decently emergent system within it, which is it's just fucking cool, right? Like,
I mean, I don't know that many games, admittedly, but I don't think I've ever played another game where you play any music. Like just you like straight up play a single song in a single moment of any game. Like nothing comes to mind. Drawing a complete blank there. And this whole game, first of all, has an incredible soundtrack, and second of all, it's like the main device with which you move through the game is like the songs of the universe. It's just so cool. It's so nice. Like even though I don't remember the songs and I have to look them up, I have to hit start and look them up because I don't remember. It feels good every time I play, and it's also a funny thing happens when you play like, a song that you don't play often or whatever, Sun Song, after not playing it for a while. I like play it completely rhythmically wrong. I just do the 3 notes, but not like with the rhythm that it's supposed to be, and it still works. And then the game takes over and starts playing out the rest of the song, and I'm like, oh yeah, this song,
that's how it goes.
Another banger. Like, I forgot about this.
That was something I wrote down too, which I was thinking about is memorizing songs fun? And a lot of these are very simple, so it's like not such a big deal. But yeah, to your point, if you haven't played something in a while, like having to look it up is a little bit clunky. It's not, I don't think I would prefer just like a drop down list. Like I pull up my ocarina, it's like, which song do you want to play? Pick it, and then it plays it.
It's so much cooler to punch it in. It's so much cooler to punch it in.
Yeah.
But I mean, it takes 2 seconds. You hit start, you look at the thing, it's like, oh, down, left, right. Okay. Hit start again, down, left, right, dude, done.
Yeah, and if you played this game a lot, or it was like your main game growing up, you probably just would have these memorized,
especially
too.
If you're a kid. Like I'm fucking adult brained, not sleeping enough and not playing enough. Like another thing when you're a kid is like you just play for like 10 hours straight, like no problem, right? So it's just like I played this song a million times.
And you probably just play it for, again, the same thing as me not messing around with the ocarina. You probably just play it for funsies because it. Like, you have your friends over, like, look what song. I mean, I went into this fucking gravestone. Look what song I learned from this, and showing your friends it. Like, like that stuff is I think pretty cool and emergent. But yeah, it feels a touch clunky, but I wouldn't want the alternative. I think is the resolution I landed on. The last little detail, side quest, whatever, I wanted to wrap up before we talk about getting big is so after you've done Jabba Jabba's belly, you've enabled the entire Happy Mask Salesman side quest.
Didn't do it at all.
I suspected not. The reason I want to the reason I want to draw attention to it is, one, because this is sort of the like seeds planted for Majora's Mask, which is my favorite Zelda game in the series.
Next for Wide Flank.
Spoilers, probably next in the series. It's interesting. It's not as sort of expansive as I would super like it to be, and maybe I'll just leave it as that. The one thing that I think is really cool about it is the final part of that quest leverages some sort of unique action in a Hyrule field. You have to find a person who's like running around in Hyrule Field.
Oh, okay.
So it uses that space in a little bit of a unique way.
Oh,
but
that's fun. Yeah.
as far as the actual quest goes, it's more of a cool, like, we're gonna end up reusing these assets and vibe and like that kind of stuff for Majora's Mask than it is like super standalone interesting.
Yeah.
But it was something that I went through and did just because of my affinity for Majora's Mask.
Love it.
Yeah, maybe you'll do that, maybe you won't.
Yeah, maybe now I'll do it, but I don't even know if I can do it now because I'm big. I've moved on, but
I'm not gonna spoil anything in that regard.
Oh, interesting. Okay, sounds like I might get small again, but
So to get on with it, then we get to we've got the 3 stones. I think that this is set up to feel like you've completed the game. Or that you're heading into the final boss to some extent,
something like that, yeah.
Which in the back of your mind, I think is not true because there are so many different things that you've had kind of like a look at that you can't interact with. Whether that's the Gerudo area, Water Temple, which you obviously remember, the tunics in the shops, which say that they won't fit a kid.
Yeah.
You have these different sort of like indicators that there's more, but still as a kid. As a kid playing this game you kind of maybe feel like this is the resolution.
It's also the Sacred Realm. That for me was like the giveaway because I remember talking to Zelda, I think, about the Temple of Time, and she's like, you need the 3 stones to then like access the Sacred Realm, and I was like, oh, okay, like again, I kept saying in the first episode, like, okay, now the game begins, now my adventure begins. Like this was me being like, okay, now it's gonna get fucking serious because now like time is gonna enter the equation. I'm probably gonna get big. Like I might have to fight Ganondorf. I was like, okay, yeah, here we go.
Yeah, that's the moment. So you have the callback to that amazing horse scene where Zelda and Impa are fleeing, and Ganondorf is like what did you see where they went? And then you feel bad. You're like having that moment where you feel scared and that kind of stuff. He blasts you and you're just like, okay, no, this is not the boss fight right now. We can't do this.
Ganondorf giving big Roger from Doug energy also. He's such a Roger looking motherfucker. He's just like a nasty little green guy.
Yeah. So then you scoop the Ocarina of Time from the moat that Zelda throws back to you. And then we head over to the Temple of Time. We drop the stones in. I learned the Song of Time, which is a banger song,
certifiable,
and open up the door. And then I remember, this was like this moment where it was a very big difference in like the personality of the person who I think was holding the controller at this point. Because I think I, at this moment, had the urge to like walk to the Master Sword. Like this is this like dramatic, like cool moment. Like I can't just fucking like speed run this. Like I need
just rolling.
I need to show some respect for the Temple of Time. And then like I remember other friends just like, just fucking go, man. Like just do it. Like, so there's that sort of moment. And then you pull it out and like you said, the adventure begins, the story begins. You talk to Rauru. I think the Sage of Light.
Well, you get the Master Sword also, and then you
get the Master Sword, you get the Sage of Light, and then you have that cool moment where you're looking at him in first person, and he's like, 7 years have passed. Don't believe me? Let's go to third person. So you do.
It's cool.
And that's a pretty cool moment. I did write down a quote that he says at one point, which is, "You're too young to be the hero of time." And my immediate reaction was like, homie, who solved all of the world's problems like already? like
also, how old are you, bitch? Like, you're too old to do anything.
And spoiler alert before that, but like the world sucks now. Like if I had just stayed around, like maybe things would have like maybe I could have solved those problems. True. Obviously you don't have the same game, but anyway, I had sort of this like reaction to that. But it then sort of sets the stage for like what the game is about to be. Which brings you into this moment, which this was a song that I had completely forgotten. After you're done talking to Rauru, you're leaving the Temple of Time, and in comes Sheik for the first time.
Yeah.
And the Sheik harps kick in.
Oh, dude, you do a little duet. Yeah.
It is so good. So good. Like I'm getting chills thinking about this song. I'd completely forgotten about it. And then Sheik sets the stage for like, these are the 5 temples that you're going to be needing to go to in order to like actually resolve the problems of the world.
And further proof that I haven't played this game since it came out in 1998. It took me until this moment to be like, oh, that's Sheik from Smash. I never knew who Sheik was. Like, I knew Sheik was a popular character in Smash, and I was just like, oh, it's probably some fucking game I've never played before. No, it's a game that I played, like, start to finish, loved, was obsessed with when I was young, and just literally did not remember.
Yep, completely.
Yeah.
So you get that moment with the hearts, and the sort of like setup for what's next. And then you enter Hyrule again. And like I sort of already alluded to, Hyrule is fucked. Your first visual of this as you're leaving the Temple of Time is like Death Mountain, dark sky, the ring wild. Is red, like it's scary. And then you go into the charming marketplace.
It's all re-deads.
Full of re-dead. You're just like, what the fuck? The drawbridge is broken.
I'm in Dark Souls all of a sudden. Like, I don't even play Dark Souls. I just can't get it out of my head. Like, that's just where I am now. I was just like, oh, okay, I'm in like literal hell. Yeah. And like, the enemies are 50 times harder and more deadly. And yeah, it's just like there's nothing good in this world anymore.
Yeah, everything's creepy, and you're told to go to Kakariko Village to try to figure out how you can even enter the first temple.
The forest temple,
the forest temple. So that'll be my first question: is was this the moment that you went into the graveyard and did everything, or how did you kind of figure out
the graveyard where stuff to get I did when I was young? Okay, to get the hook shot. Yeah, I mean, I went to. Wait, fuck! Where do you even get it again? I'm like forgetting. Where
you have to race Dampy in the graveyard. Yes, so that's another like things have changed. Things are scary. So this dude who was old is dead now. Like,
right. I went to Kakariko, which first of all feels really wrong because they tell you to go to Kakariko, but they also tell you that there's a girl you might know, which obviously you know is like Saria, and in the forest temple. So in my head, I was like, wait, shouldn't I be going to like Lost Woods or, the forest or back there? But I was like, I guess I'll go to Kakariko, which felt a little like, why am I here? Honestly, like everyone is sort of the same. Like all the houses are like sort of the same. It's just like you're a little older. Maybe some people are a little different. They mentioned a lot of people mentioned the graveyard or the gravedigger's dead or like his ghost runs around or something. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll go back. I knew which graves to open, the ones that have like an opening, right? Because we did that already when I was young. And yeah, I eventually just found him and did the race. I was surprised that that's how you get, like usually in Zelda, you get the essential item in the dungeon that you need it for. That's like classic Zelda. So it was pretty surprising because, like, I think I just got kind of lucky that I did the right thing. I think that, like, another version of this playthrough, I could have been like, I don't know what the fuck to do. I can't get into the forest temple. Like, what the fuck is going on? And I don't know what the game would have done at that point. Like, probably your fairy probably would have been like, they told you to go to Kakariko Village, and I would have gone back and bash my head against the wall some more, but that was like, I was like, oh shit, okay, yeah, I guess that's how you get the item. I
have in my notes around this time, holy fuck, Navi is annoying. Like I'll be in the middle of doing something and she's like, hey, listen, hey,
dude,
and like I'm just like if you click on it, she's like, I might be literally in the process of doing the thing that she's about to tell me to do, and I'm just like, dude, like,
well, dude,
chill.
Every enemy that you Z target or like focus Z target, she's popping up. Every single enemy. I could have killed the same enemy 1,000 times and she'll still pop up. Hey, listen. And I'm just like, all you're gonna tell me is like, don't get hit by this or something, or like use your sword. And it's just so fucking annoying. Like,
use your sword, really?
Yeah, it's like, I wish if you've killed that enemy type before, she just would shut the fuck up. That is like the obvious fix, because sometimes it's kind of nice to have like the option to like, oh, I've never seen this enemy before, like I can get info on it, right? And it's like, she might say like the weak point is the tail, and you're like, oh, okay, sick. But like then 50 more times in the same dungeon with the same enemy. I'm just like, can you please shut the fuck up and die?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
No, I totally get it. So you have the Dampy race, which I think is a really fun mini game.
Yeah, it's fun. Fun race. Yeah.
You know, it's hard to some extent. I don't know if you failed it once or twice or something.
Yeah, the first time when he flies up to the door and you're supposed to go around, I just jumped right off the edge.
Okay.
I was just like, oh, I'm going, dude.
I'm going.
Yeah.
I think it's a fun little. I'm pretty sure you can hook shot up that area if you go back and do the race again, which is a fun little callback and reason to do it a second time. The other thing I wrote down about the hook shot here before we get into the forest temple is so the logic of the hook shot is like it hooks onto wooden stuff. But the thing that I wrote, because I was sitting in a moment, I left the situation and I went back to Lun Lun Ranch to try to get Epona at this point, because you can do that if you know the song.
Yeah, okay.
Little light spoilers. I won't say how to do it or anything,
fine.
but
yeah, I don't know the song.
But it was nighttime, so I was like, I don't think I can go in here right now and interact with what will get me the song. So I'm just gonna sit and chill. But I had the hook shot and I'm standing right next to this.
Why did you just play the Sun song?
I think I hadn't done that yet.
Wow,
I think I forgot.
nerd.
I know. I did stuff out of weird order.
Yeah,
or I was lazy, or I forgot, or I just was waiting. I don't know. One of the above.
Yeah.
But I'm standing next to a tree in the like Hyrule Field overworld, and I'm like, I'm gonna just like see if I can hook shot to the top of this tree or something. And you can't. It goes straight through it. And I was just like, okay, this is cowardly inconsistency. About the hook shot. And then the other thing I want to say about the hook shot as we start to get into the forest temple, there are some indications of this, but it happens more later in the game as well. There are these sort of metal indicators that are things that you can hook shot onto. They're like these sort of like circle icons. I think they're only in one place in the forest temple. It's
I don't know if I've seen that. Like I'm not sure I know what you're referencing.
You'll definitely know what I'm talking about after the next couple temples, but there's one area in the forest temple that you don't need to use it. It's where you're in the room with kind of like the balconies, the sort of like big actual foresty room.
Oh, and you have to go across and hit the button.
Yeah, you have to go across and hit the button. So above each of those balconies, there's like a metal indicator.
Yeah,
but anyway,
symbol.
These will be
yeah.
You'll see these later. But I think it's so weird that they use that sort of very metal looking texture to be something you can hook shot onto.
Yeah.
And then organically within a lot of the world, whether it's like the tree that you hook shot up to get into the forest temple, or chests, which you can hook shot onto as well. Yeah. All of those sorts of things, like that sort of makes sense that a like hook would drill into this. Whereas like a metal thing, like it's just sort of a weird inconsistency in sort of like game iconography that stood out to me that I wanted to like at least note.
For me, it's I was still at the point where it's like it's very unclear what and when I can hook, because I've used it like 2 times, like get in the temple and that one button, and everything else I've tried to do to like be clever, like rupees, can't get him. Chest, like it just bounces off. Like get to that door, just bounces off. I'm like, okay, I don't know. I don't know how this thing works.
It's a little inconsistent, and I think that there's some fun in trying it with different things, but also it would be more fun in trying it if there was maybe more consistency to the logic. Right. But also if there was too much consistency or truth to the logic, then the game would maybe be really breakable. So, it goes a little bit both ways. So as you're heading into Forest Temple, returning to Saria's stump, I wrote down.
So sick.
And it's something that I think about here, just with regards to this game, but also just to like media in general, is like time is like one of the saddest themes in all media. And Sheik says something at this moment when Sheik meets you at the front of the temple.
I know what you're gonna say.
The flow of time is always cruel.
So sick.
That's a banger of the line.
The whole line is good. Its speed seems different for each person, but no one can change it. A thing that does not change with time is a memory of younger days. I was like, oh shit. Like, am I going to get young now? Or like, I don't know. It was just great. Sheik is fucking awesome.
Sheik is so good. And with the harps back again, and then you learn the minuet of the forest,
minuet,
which is a great one. And then we get into the forest temple which, as a couple of folks in the Discord mentioned in response to favorite song in Ocarina, the moody Forest Temple music was up there. Oh my God, how right they were! This is another
so good,
absolute banger. Perfect for the vibe of the temple.
Yep.
One of the things that I think was really interesting about the soundtrack podcast that was shared in the Discord as well.
Oh yeah, shout out to Schiff who shared that. I haven't listened yet, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, one of the things that that's mentioned in that podcast is how the dungeon music, in contrast to some of the previous Zelda games, is very like minimal and ambient, but still creates this like very like enveloping, scary, uneasy, unsettling feeling. And the Forest Temple is exactly a good instance of that.
It's really like, it's really trippy and weird, but it's also like stressful and engaging. And it's just so. There was this like Art of Noise track that was on the tip of my tongue. I texted you about earlier. Like that was the only thing that like it really reminded me of, but it's very unique. It's very cool. And it's going on the entire time you're in the temple, and it never gets old, and you never like notice the beginning or end of it, which is like really an achievement, you know, like because usually if something's just looping, it's just like, oh my God, like fucking end already, kill me. And it just is so perfect.
Yeah, it's so well suited for this temple. And this temple is I think from my perspective is like the first very legit, scary, challenging temple. Certainly as a kid, but
it was great. It was
even as an
so
adult.
Good. I mean, that Bacon said like this is where the real game starts, in my opinion. Like totally, like I can totally see that. You know, you're an adult, you've gotten through some like pretty easy, not that memorable temples, dungeons, and then you go Forest Temple, and it's like, it's kind of hard. We already talked about like the combat in there is different from the combat early in the game. Like you have to bait out attacks. Like it's you're really interacting with like a AI in combat, and the music is trippy and great, and it's kind of like scary and weird, and your background, so like the twisted rooms, like the fucking like the first time you see that, I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like and you get the bow and you have to shoot the eye switches, and it's just like, it's so sick. That temple is so sick. I'm really excited for future temples.
Yeah, to your point about the skeletons, so the skeleton warriors in this zone have like a fairly complicated AI. It's also something that, and I remember this as a kid, and I sure as shit remembered it again when I played through this time. They do not care about your shield if you're too close to them. They will hit you right over the top for I can't remember if it's like 2 or 3 hearts, but it's like a substantial hit. I died a few times fighting them. I definitely died growing up fighting them, and I didn't learn my lesson. There's the room where there's the transparent floor for a part where they walk over it, but you fall through it.
I don't remember that. How do I not remember that?
There's like a floor cutout, not transparent. Maybe that's a better way.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And they're like walking on top of you. You're like, what the hell? And then maybe you try to do it, and you're like, oh no, I can't do that. They're pretty good. And then the twisted hallways are just this another amazing use of 3D space, like really leveraging, really leveraging the capabilities of this new game system, which is something that, you know, if you look at like launch or launch-ish titles on every Nintendo console, like whatever it is that's new about that console, whether it's, you know, graphical capabilities, whether it's input capabilities, like it doesn't matter. You look at like the first couple of years of titles, especially, they just lean so hard into what's new and exciting about the system that they're making. And this is just another example of that. Like you could not do something like this in a 2D game. Or if you could, it would have like none of the impact of that sensation of seeing, you said about it in the pre-show, the Inception-esque like hallway that you're looking at that turns and then it changes the orientation of the other rooms. Like this is just phenomenal 3D design in a world where this kind of design didn't exist yet. You know, this is this is the foundation for 3D puzzles.
I mean, like Half-Life had just come out, I think maybe same year on PC, which is crazy. Like if you think about just how far ahead like PC was at that point. But I just remember again from the often referenced Doom episode, because I read the book about the Doom guys, and it's just so fascinating how a lot of, for decades, the like growth of technology was just hand in hand with like the development of games.
Mhm.
Like a new thing would be discovered, and it's like unlocking a tool that then led to this new bunch of games taking advantage of it until the next thing was discovered, and then the next games were made. And it's just like, yeah, this is totally that, right? This is like, how can we make a level that uses not just the floor but the wall and the ceiling like all in one? Because you go through the twisted room, then you're in a room where you're obviously standing on the floor, but like to the right of you is like a chest that's on the wall that you can't open. And above you, if you stand still, is this monster that's just going to land on your head and take you completely out of the temple.
The
so
floor master.
Yeah, you
so
can't
good.
even stay still. You're just like going through these weird, not really puzzles, but you're just platforming through this weird room that has stuff in the wrong places. It's just like magical. It's incredible.
It's so good. I'm glad you mentioned the floor masters, because those were like legit terrifying as a kid.
They're so scary. Yeah.
And also, and this will be a theme probably for next episode, because spoilers, I read ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
But this gets to the part of the game where like there are certain things in this game that I write down that they're just like completely unhinged. Like, okay, this is a monster that like you're like relatively deep in the temple at this point. If you just like stand still, either because you're being absent-minded or you're like trying to explore a space that's impossible for you to interact with certain things, you're gonna go back to the beginning of the temple and have to redo it again. Like,
and lose like 2 hearts.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's unhinged. And there's lots more examples of this across the game. But this is one that jumps out to me as one of the initial ones where you're just like, what the hell just happened to me?
I expected to die or for it to like jump off of me and then I fight it, and I'm just like teleported to the beginning of the temple getting attacked by the wolves. I'm like, what? Yeah. Like, really? Like, do I even have the boomerang or like have the whatever items or keys I found so far? But yeah, it's so cool. It's so special. Again, that temple really is like, it's just next level. It feels next level.
Yeah, if you're cool, that kind of brings me into the boss fight. There's some other fun things like with the Poe pictures and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the ghost stuff is like, they're basically little puzzles that are fun and weird and nice. Yeah.
But getting into maybe the boss fight there, you have the first instance of keys in this temple, which we haven't mentioned yet, and then also the boss key, which has the coolest chest. That design is so good. The blue and yellow chest, super enticing. And I think it's on a sideways wall when you first see it.
Yeah,
so you're like, how do I get
That's what
this?
I just mentioned. Yeah. Also, before we talk about the boss, I did want to mention one of the puzzles. There's all these eyes around, and you have to shoot them with your new bow and arrow to hit them. There's switches. And then there's one eye in a room that's frozen. And I was like, fuck. And then I saw the flame. There's like a torch nearby. And so I immediately went up to the flame, like pulled the arrow back, tried to like light the tip of it on fire and then shoot it. And that didn't work. And then there's these moving platforms. And I was like, oh my God, do I have to shoot through the fire to like melt it? I just thought it was so cool. I was like, this is just like fucking awesome design. Like,
it's a great puzzle. You got to line it up with the moving platforms. It's a little finicky, with the way that first person targeting works in this game, but
it preps you for a very finicky boss fight where it's hard to hit the fucking guys. He's jumping from painting to painting.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so we'll get into the boss fight then. So you were trying to shoot him mid jump.
Yeah, that's the only that every shot that I hit was mid jump.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so
how are you supposed to do it?
Phantom Ganon is the boss. For those who don't know, he's again a really cool 3D puzzle here. You're in a room full of this picture that has this like pathway on it.
Yeah, there's like 6 to 8 paintings or something like that. They're identical. Yeah,
they're identical, and he's riding a horse from the like background of the picture to the foreground, and then jumping out of them. So, you were shooting him as he goes through. You can actually shoot him when the like portal starts to open and he's about to jump out. He's completely still at that point, so it's like actually quite straightforward and easy. But there's this sort of like
I did it.
You know,
like I was saying before, I do everything the absolute dumbest and hardest way possible. It's just I don't know what's wrong with me, but yeah.
No, it's cool. It's cool. But so there's this really cool 3D moment here where like you can only see a subsection of the pictures at a time, and so you're like moving around and like resetting your Z targeting without anything to target on to figure out which one he's actually going to come out of. Which is like again a very cool, unique usage of the mechanisms within this 3D game. And then once you finish that sort of that section of shooting him with the bow and arrow, you enter what is like this moment that I'd completely forgotten about, but the second that I had to do it again, I just was like, this is so fucking cool, which is energy ball tennis.
It's so sick. It's so fucking sick.
Yeah, he's flinging a ball of energy at you. You have to time your sword hit. And on like the first one or two, like you hit it back at him and it hits him. You're like, cool, makes sense.
Yeah, easy.
And then as it gets further in, he starts hitting it back at you. And if you're too far away, it'll go completely wide. And if you're too close, he's hitting it so fast that you can't react fast enough to
that happened to me a bunch of times. Like, and it does mega damage, way more damage than any enemy you fought so far. It does like 2 full hearts.
It's really stressful. It's really exciting. It's really
exciting.
It's really interactive. Like I remember playing this with friends growing up and it just being like this moment of like great tension of like you got to hit this rhythmically like right in the same way. It really feels like you're interacting with this boss in a way that it's not UI or it's not AI. It's like an actual being that you're fighting. And that part was just another moment in this part of this playthrough where I was like, okay, actually the rose-colored glasses are off. This is just a fucking dope game with really cool interactions and fights and like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's just an incredible boss fight. I agree with everything you said. Like, I keep mentioning the combat, but like the combat from the beginning of the game through to this moment, it's just like exponentially better. Like, I think, again, like part of it is just comfort from the design perspective, I'm sure, of just being like, yeah, okay, like we can execute this now from a design perspective, and we're confident the player can execute this now and not get like too frustrated. Because, you know, if you're a little bit worse at games or less comfortable with the controls, like you could definitely die to this boss multiple times, like no question. But I don't think it ever feels like unfair. I think it's just like right, even if you're like too close and he hits you with the energy ball because you were a little too slow, it's not like this is bullshit. It's like, oh man, if I was a little further away, I would have gotten the timing right and hit him properly.
You'd have had the wind up there.
Yeah, exactly. So like feeling fair while feeling exciting and difficult, just executed perfectly. Yeah,
totally. Fantastic temple. To the point of this is where the game starts. The game starts here. Like that was
it really does.
That is a look into what is to come. And maybe the best temple. I mean, spoiler. Like there's a lot of good temples. I'm not gonna shortchange.
I don't have
an
opinion on that, but it's good. It's really good.
It is certainly a really memorable one. But yeah, that kind of brings us to the end of like what we played up to this time. Do you have any other things that we like didn't touch on?
No, honestly, not really. I think we went way longer than I thought we would. I'm happy about it though, because it was fun. There's not that much else on the tip of my tongue. I'm just looking forward to 2 weeks from now, 4 more temples, Ganondorf. Let's get into it.
Yeah, 4 more temples and beat the game is gonna be our plan for the next session. If you're playing along with us, it's a fun run of it. There's as I kind of said at the top of it, there's some other exploration and mini games and side questing and that kind of stuff. Not as much as you might expect from a game like this, I think, but there is some. But yeah, we'll look forward to talking about all that stuff next time. And seeing how it goes, seeing how it holds up.
I know, seeing what dumbass puzzles I get stuck on.
I'm sure I'm gonna write down so many different moments. Like, how did you figure this out? How did you figure this out? Like,
now I'm gonna remember based off this episode to like as soon as I figure something out, I'm gonna make a note of like, okay, this is what I did. Like this took me an hour, and you're gonna be like, oh yeah, that's really tricky. All right, dude. Yeah, thanks again. Thanks everyone for listening. I'll see you in Discord.
See you next time.